He invited the alien girl into his tent to warm up, not expecting what happened next. The relentless alien rain drummed against Jack Nolan's thermal tent, creating a hypnotic rhythm that almost, but not quite, drowned out the strange sounds of the jungle at night. Sitting by his carefully maintained campfire, protected by the makeshift awning he'd rigged up, he took another sip of his steaming coffee and checked his tactical datapad. The mission parameters were clear. Scout the unexplored region of Proxima B, designated as Zone 7, and report any signs of intelligent life or valuable resources. So far, he'd found plenty of the latter. Exotic flora with potential pharmaceutical applications, rare mineral deposits, and even some interesting energy signatures that the eggheads back at base would love to study. But intelligent life? Not a whisper. Just the usual array of alien wildlife that seemed to regard humans as either a curiosity or a potential meal, depending on their size and disposition. Jack ran a hand through his tousled brown hair, feeling the familiar texture of his undercut beneath his fingers. The stubble on his jaw had grown a bit more than he liked during his week-long expedition, but personal grooming wasn't exactly a priority out here in the wilderness. His black tank top clung to his muscular frame, still damp from the earlier trek through the dense undergrowth. A sudden movement in the tree line caught his attention. His hand instinctively moved to the pulse rifle propped against his chair, but he didn't grab it yet. Experience had taught him that most threats announced themselves with more aggression. This was different, more cautious, almost hesitant. "Come on out," he called, his voice carrying easily despite the rain. "I've got coffee if you're friendly, and a whole lot of trouble if you're not." The foliage parted, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. Standing at the edge of his campsite was quite possibly the most striking female form he'd ever encountered. Alien or human, her skin was a soft shade of pink that seemed to glow in the firelight, and her light-colored hair fell in wet strands around a face that was both exotic and eerily beautiful. She wore what appeared to be a form-fitting leather outfit that left little to the imagination, with a plunging neckline and exposed midriff that would have seemed impractical for jungle exploration if she hadn't worn it with such natural grace. She spoke, her voice carrying a melodic quality that sent shivers down his spine. "I mean, no harm. The storm, it's getting worse." As if to emphasize her point, a crash of thunder rolled across the sky, making her jump slightly. Jack lowered his hand from the rifle. "You speak English?" She nodded, taking a tentative step forward. "We've been studying your language since your kind first arrived. I'm Lorena." "Jack," he replied, gesturing to the fire. "You look like you could use some warming up." She moved closer, her movements carrying an otherworldly elegance, despite her obvious discomfort from the cold rain. As she settled near the fire, Jack couldn't help but notice how the firelight played across her features, highlighting alien angles that somehow only enhanced her beauty. "Thank you," she said, extending her delicate hands toward the flames. I got separated from my survey team when the storm hit. Our equipment doesn't work well in these conditions." Jack nodded, trying to maintain professional composure despite the strange flutter in his chest. "That's rough. These storms can last for days out here. You're welcome to wait it out by the fire." Lorena glanced at his tent, then back at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Actually, would it be possible? Would you mind if I stayed in your tent just until morning?" Jack felt his pulse quicken. Every security protocol and regulation screamed against the idea of letting an unknown alien into his shelter. But something in her eyes, something vulnerable yet mischievous, made him want to throw caution to the wind. "Sure," he heard himself say. "It's not exactly spacious, but it's dry." Her smile was radiant. "Thank you, Jack. You're very kind." As he helped her settle into the tent, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this night was about to become far more interesting than any of his previous expeditions. He just had no idea how right he was. The jungle erupted into chaos as another explosion rocked the ground. Closer this time. Jack grabbed his tactical gear while Lorena's fingers flew over her communication device, her previous casual demeanor replaced by focused intensity. "Traxon," she spat the name like a curse. "He's tracked me across half the sector." "I'm guessing he's not part of your survey team," Jack said, checking his pulse rifle's charge. The weapon hummed to life, its status display glowing a reassuring green. He's a praetor of my species, Lorana explained, her pink skin taking on a subtle luminescence that Jack hadn't seen before. Think of him as a genetic matchmaker with delusions of grandeur and an unhealthy obsession with racial purity. A deep, resonating roar echoed through the trees, causing the local wildlife to scatter in panic. Jack felt the sound in his bones, an ancient part of his brain screaming danger. That's not a happy sound, he muttered, shouldering his pack. Lorana's expression hardened. Traxon believes our species should remain untainted by outside influences. He's part of a conservative faction that sees humans as primitive warriors who got lucky with their technology. Her lips curved into a sardonic smile. He's especially opposed to any intimate relations between our kinds. And last night, Jack began, understanding dawning, was a choice, Lorana finished firmly. My people's females select mates based on character, courage, and compatibility, not arbitrary genetic markers or social status. It's why we evolved our empathic abilities in the first place. The trees ahead of them suddenly parted, revealing a towering figure that made Jack's jaw drop. Is standing at least 8 feet tall, with crystalline growths protruding from his shoulders and a deep magenta skin tone. Traxon cut an imposing figure. His face might have been considered handsome by his species standards, but it was twisted with rage. Lyranai! His voice boomed across the clearing. You disgrace our lineage by consorting with this primitive. Jack raised his rifle, but Lyrana stepped in front of him, her body beginning to emit a soft, pulsing glow. The only disgrace here is your outdated ideology, Traxon. Humans have proven themselves worthy allies 1,000 times over. Allies? Traxon sneered. Perhaps, but mates? You soil yourself with their base desires. Base desires? Lorana laughed, the sound sharp and challenging. While you were studying genetic charts and arranging political marriages, I was studying humanity's true nature. Their passion, their determination, their capacity for growth and adaptation. They possess qualities our people have forgotten in our quest for supposed perfection. Jack watched in amazement as Lorana's glow intensified, creating a protective field around them both. He'd never seen anything like it. The energy seemed to respond to her emotions, swirling and pulsing with each word. Their strength isn't in their genetics, she continued, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to make the very air vibrate. It's in their hearts, their spirits, something you could never understand with your obsession with biological purity. Traxon's response was to raise a crystalline weapon, its design unlike anything in human arsenals. Then you leave me no choice. I'll eliminate this contamination myself. What followed was unlike any combat Jack had ever experienced. Lorana's protective field deflected energy blasts while she demonstrated abilities he hadn't imagined possible. She moved with incredible speed, her body's glow creating afterimages as she engaged Traxon in close combat. Her smaller size proved an advantage as she ducked and weaved around his powerful but slower attacks. Jack provided covering fire when he could, his pulse rifle's shots forcing Traxon to divide his attention. The jungle around them was being torn apart by the battle, trees splintering and ground scorched by errant energy blasts. Your human can't even protect himself, Traxon taunted as he deflected another burst of rifle fire. How can such a weak species possibly contribute to our evolution? Strength isn't just about physical power, Lorana shot back, landing a spinning kick that actually staggered the larger alien. Jack showed more courage and compassion in one night than you've demonstrated in your entire life. The fight continued, with Lorana and Jack working in surprising synchronization. Their different abilities complemented each other. Her speed and energy manipulation, his tactical training and precision shooting. Together, they gradually wore down Traxon's defenses. Finally, after a particularly intense exchange, Lorana managed to disarm Traxon with a complex series of moves that left him sprawled in the mud. Jack kept his rifle trained on the fallen praetor, while Lorana stood over him, her glow now a brilliant aurora of power. You've lost, Traxon, she declared. Not just this fight, but the future. Our people need new perspectives, new strengths. Humanity offers that possibility. Traxon spat in disgust. The council will hear of this perversion. Good, Lorana smiled, though there was steel in her voice. Let them hear how a human and I defeated one of their precious praetors. Let them wonder what other surprises might come from such partnerships. She turned to Jack, her expression softening. "There's something else you should know." She began, then swayed slightly, her glow dimming. Jack caught her before she could fall, noting how her skin seemed to pulse with an internal light different from her combat glow. "Layrana, what's wrong?" She pressed a hand to her abdomen, looking up at him with a mix of wonder and uncertainty. "Remember when I said there was much you didn't know about my people? Well, that night, my species can sense conception immediately. We're compatible in ways nobody expected." Jack's world tilted on its axis as the implications hit him. "You mean..." The jungle's humidity felt heavier than ever as Jack processed Layrana's revelation. His mind raced with implications while his heart performed acrobatics in his chest. The defeated Traxan lay forgotten for a moment as Jack gently steadied Layrana, noting how her skin's luminescence had taken on a pearl-like quality. "A child?" he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our child." Layrana's hand remained pressed against her abdomen, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. "My people can sense life from the moment it begins. It's extraordinary. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our genetic records." A harsh laugh from Traxan interrupted their moment. "You fool! Do you think I came alone? The Council's enforcers are already—" His words cut off as distant engines roared overhead. 3 sleek vessels, their hulls gleaming with the same crystalline properties as Traxan's weapon, descended through the canopy. Jack recognized the design from his military briefings. Luminarian interceptors. Top-of-the-line combat craft. "We need to move," Jack said, his tactical training kicking in. "Now!" Layrana nodded, her combat glow returning, though noticeably dimmer than before. "The pregnancy affects my energy reserves. I can't maintain full combat capabilities." Jack's mind raced through options as he helped her into the dense undergrowth. "My base camp is too far, but I know something better. There's a series of caves about 2 clicks east, heavily shielded by mineral deposits. Should mask our signatures." They moved swiftly through the jungle, Jack's survival training complementing Layrana's natural agility. Behind them, they could hear Traxan barking orders to the newly arrived enforcers. "The child changes everything," Layrana said as they navigated a particularly treacherous slope. "Our species has tried to hybridize with others before, but never successfully. The fact that we're compatible, it validates everything the progressives have been arguing. And that's why Traxan and his allies are so afraid," Jack realized. "It proves humans aren't just lucky primitives." An energy blast sizzled past them, vaporizing a tree trunk. Jack returned fire, his pulse rifle's shots forcing their pursuers to take cover. Layrana generated a protective field, though Jack could see the effort straining her. "The caves are just ahead," he said, providing covering fire as they reached the rocky outcropping. "But we'll be trapped if we don't." "No, we won't," Layrana interrupted, her eyes scanning the rock face. "These formations, they're perfect for amplifying my people's natural abilities." They ducked into the cave system just as another barrage of fire lit up the entrance. Jack could hear their pursuers coordinating their approach, and trying to box them in. "What do you mean, amplifying?" he asked, checking his rifle's charge. The display showed 47%, not ideal for a prolonged firefight. Layrana pressed her hand against the cave wall, and the crystalline structures within began to resonate with her own energy. "Our abilities evolved alongside similar mineral formations on our homeworld. In the right conditions, the entire cave system suddenly hummed with power. Layrana's energy signature multiplying and reflecting off the crystal-laden walls. The effect was disorienting, creating dozens of false readings that would confuse any tracking systems. "Impressive," Jack grinned, "but they'll still eventually find us." "Then let's give them something else to think about," Layrana smiled, her earlier uncertainty replaced by determination. "Help me reach that main crystal cluster. I have an idea that might buy us some time to plan our next move." As Jack helped her navigate the uneven cave floor, he found himself marveling at her strength. Here she was, carrying their impossible child, hunted by her own people, yet still fighting with unwavering resolve. "You know," he said, supporting her as she reached for a particularly large crystal formation, "when I invited you into my tent last night, I definitely wasn't expecting any of this." Her laugh echoed through the cave, a sound of genuine joy despite their situation. "Humans, always stating the obvious in the most endearing ways. She turned to face him, her free hand caressing his cheek. That's part of why I chose you, you know. Your species has this wonderful ability to face the impossible with humor and hope. And here I thought it was just my rugged good looks, he quipped, earning another laugh. Their moment was interrupted by Traxon's voice booming from outside. Surrender now, Lorana. The council might show mercy if you terminate this abomination willingly. Lorana's expression hardened as she pressed both hands against the crystal cluster, ready to show them what happens when you corner a pregnant luminarian and her chosen mate. Jack readied his rifle, positioning himself to cover her. Lead the way, beautiful. The crystals began to pulse with energy as Lorana channeled her power through them, creating a cascading effect throughout the cave system. The air itself seemed to charge with potential as she prepared to demonstrate exactly why her people's females were considered the more dangerous gender. Oh, and Jack, she said, her skin beginning to shine with that pearl-like glow again. About last night, I may have acted casual this morning, but… She met his eyes. I knew exactly what I was doing when I chose you, and I'd choose you again. Before Jack could respond, the cave erupted with light and power, and the real battle for their future began. The cave exploded with prismatic energy as Lorana channeled her power through the crystal formations. The resulting blast sent Traxon's enforcers scrambling for cover, their sensors overloaded by the massive energy surge. But the display had another, unintended effect. It lit up every monitoring system in a 100-mile radius. Jack's tactical comm crackled to life. Scout Nolan, this is command. We're detecting massive energy signatures at your location. Status report. Before he could respond, another voice cut through, this one speaking in the melodic tones of the Luminarian language, though Jack's universal translator handled it smoothly. This is High Counselor Astra. All enforcement units stand down immediately. The cave entrance fell silent. Jack and Lorana exchanged glances as multiple ships became audible overhead, both human and Luminarian designs. Well, Jack said, managing a wry smile, I guess we got their attention. Lorana's hand found his, her skin still glowing with residual energy. The High Counselor is… my mother. Jack nearly dropped his rifle. Your what? Did I forget to mention that? Lorana's attempt at innocence was betrayed by the mischievous glint in her eyes. I may have been doing more than just studying humans these past few years. Before Jack could process this new revelation, a familiar voice boomed from outside. Nolan, get your ass out here, son. General Preston, Jack sighed, my commanding officer, and possibly the most stubborn human alive. Perfect, Lorana smiled. He'll match well with my mother. They emerged from the cave to find an unprecedented scene. Human dropships hovered alongside Luminarian vessels, their running lights cutting through the jungle's perpetual mist. General Preston, a barrel-chested man with steel-gray hair, stood facing a tall, elegant Luminarian female, whose commanding presence made Traxon look like a cadet at parade rest. Jack Nolan, Preston's voice carried that special tone reserved for soldiers who'd created diplomatic incidents. Care to explain why I'm standing in an alien jungle at 0600 hours, dealing with an interspecies crisis? Sir, He acted with honor and courage, Lorana interrupted, stepping forward. And in doing so, he may have just changed the course of both our species' histories. High Counselor Astra's eyes narrowed as she studied her daughter. After a moment, they widened in recognition. You're carrying a child, she stated. A hybrid child. The assembled humans and Luminarians erupted in shocked murmurs. Traxon, still nursing his wounds from earlier, looked like he might spontaneously combust. Impossible, he spat. Our genetics are apparently more compatible than your precious studies suggested. Lorana cut him off. The child's energy signature is stable and strong. It seems humans aren't quite as primitive as some would believe. General Preston pinched the bridge of his nose. Nolan, when I sent you on a scouting mission, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. To be fair, sir, Jack replied, unable to completely suppress his grin. She did just need to warm up. A few human soldiers failed to contain their snickers, while several younger Luminarians actually smiled. Even High Counselor Astra's severe expression softened slightly. Mother, Lorana addressed the High Counselor directly, you've always taught me that our species must evolve or stagnate, that we must find new paths forward. Well, she squeezed Jack's hand, I've found one. By seducing a human scout, Traxon interjected. By recognizing strength of character over arbitrary genetic markers, Lorana shot back. Humans have proven themselves time and again. Their adaptability, their resilience, their capacity for growth. They've achieved in centuries what took us millennia. She's not wrong, General Preston mused, surprising everyone. Hell, in the 5 years since first contact, humanity's understanding of energy manipulation has advanced by decades thanks to cooperation with the Luminarians. High Counselor Astra studied the unlikely couple before her, her expression unreadable. And you, human? What are your intentions toward my daughter and this unprecedented child? Jack stood straighter, meeting her gaze. With all due respect, High Counselor, I may not understand all your customs or biological capabilities, but I know that Lorana chose me, trusted me, and now carries my child. Where I come from, that means something. I'll stand by her, face whatever challenges come, and do everything in my power to protect them both. A long moment of silence followed his declaration. Then, unexpectedly, High Counselor Astra laughed, a sound so musical it made the nearby crystals resonate. Well said, Jack Nolan, she smiled. Perhaps there is hope for both our species yet. Ma'am, General Preston stepped forward. I propose we take this discussion somewhere more comfortable. My base camp is equipped with both human and Luminarian facilities. We can begin formal diplomatic talks regarding this unique situation. Agnolan, Astra nodded. Though I suspect my daughter and her chosen mate have already done more for diplomatic relations than 1,000 formal meetings could achieve. As they prepared to move out, Lorana pulled Jack aside. Still processing everything that's happened since you invited a strange alien girl into your tent? Honestly? He pulled her close, not caring who saw. I'm starting to think it might have been the best decision I've ever made. Her answering kiss sent sparkles of energy dancing across their skin, drawing more than a few interested looks from both species' representatives. Fair warning, she whispered again to his lips. This is just the beginning. Ready for more surprises? Jack laughed, feeling more alive than ever. Bring it on, beautiful. Bring it on. The human military base hummed with unprecedented activity as both species representatives worked to establish diplomatic protocols. Jack and Lorana had been given private quarters, a compromise between human and Luminarian design that featured both standard amenities and crystal formations to help stabilize Lorana's energy levels during her pregnancy. Your mother's driving the medical staff crazy, Jack chuckled, watching Lorana adjust the crystal's alignment. I've never seen Dr. Chase so excited about being completely confused. Lorana's skin sparkled with amusement. The feeling's mutual. Mother's personal physician keeps muttering about fascinating human genetic adaptability every time he reviews my scans. Their comfortable moment was interrupted by a subtle vibration in the crystal formations. Lorana's expression shifted instantly from playful to alert. Down! Jack dropped and rolled as an energy blast shattered their window. His combat training kicked in as he pulled his sidearm, noting with pride how Lorana had already established a protective field around herself. Conservative faction? He asked, moving to cover the door. Worse, Lorana grimaced. Purists. They make Traxon look progressive. The room's security system activated, but not before 3 shadowy figures materialized through the broken window. Their armor seemed to absorb light itself, making them appear as living voids. The abomination must not exist, one intoned, raising a weapon unlike anything Jack had seen before. What followed was a dance of death and light. Jack's military training complemented Lorana's abilities perfectly. Where he provided precise covering fire, she manipulated energy fields to deflect attacks and protect their unborn child. The assassins found themselves facing an opponent they hadn't expected, a perfectly synchronized human Luminarian combat team. Your species' weakness, one assassin spat at Lorana while dodging Jack's shots, is your female's ridiculous attraction to strength of character over genetic purity. That's not weakness, Lorana countered, using her energy manipulation to throw the attacker against a wall. It's wisdom. We seek partners who complement us, who make us stronger, not just genetic matches in a database. Jack managed to disable one assassin's armor with a well-placed shot, revealing a crystalline being beneath. Honey, is this really the time for a philosophy debate? Actually, Lorana grinned, her energy field pulsing stronger. It's perfect timing. Watch this! She channeled power through the room's crystal formations and in a way Jack hadn't seen before. The energy seemed to resonate with something inside her, or rather someone. The remaining assassins froze as a new energy signature filled the room. It emanated from Lorena's abdomen, their child's first detectable power manifestation. Impossible, the lead assassin breathed. The energy pattern, it's perfect harmony between both species. Stand down! General Preston's voice boomed as human and Luminarian security forces breached the room. Next person who moves gets to test whether their fancy armor can stop a good old-fashioned human tungsten round. The crisis passed quickly after that, but its implications resonated through both communities. The assassination attempt had failed spectacularly, instead providing proof of something remarkable. The first human-Luminarian hybrid was already displaying signs of unprecedented abilities. Later that evening, as medical teams from both species fussed over Lorena's health, Jack found himself cornered by High Counselor Astra. "You handled yourself well," she observed, "both during and after the attack." "Thank you, ma'am, though I suspect you're not here just to compliment my combat skills." Astra's lips curved in a way that reminded him intensely of Lorena. "Indeed. Tell me, Jack Nolan, how are you adapting to the rather unique circumstances of your relationship with my daughter?" Jack considered his words carefully. "Honestly, everything since that night in the tent has been a crash course in expecting the unexpected. But Lorena, she makes it all worth it. Even when she's driving me crazy with her casual attitude toward what humans consider major life events." "Ah, yes," Astra's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Our species does have rather different views on intimacy and pair bonding. Lorena tells me you were quite surprised by her initiative." Jack felt his face heat up. "That's one way to put it. Yet you've embraced every challenge, adapted to every revelation. Very human of you." She studied him intently. "Did you know that in our culture, the female's choice of mate is considered absolute? Once chosen, the male's duty is to prove himself worthy of that choice through his actions, not his genetics." "I'm beginning to understand that," Jack nodded. "And I intend to keep proving myself worthy, both to Lorena and our child." "Good," Astra smiled fully now, "because I suspect you'll have plenty more opportunities. The conservatives won't stop easily, and my daughter has always enjoyed challenging traditions." As if on cue, Lorena's voice rang out from the medical bay. "Jack, get in here and tell these doctors that human-Luminarian hybrid pregnancies don't need to follow either species' normal protocols." Jack couldn't help but laugh. "Speaking of challenges, go," Astra waved him off. "Show everyone why my daughter chose wisely." As Jack headed to deal with whatever new situation had arisen, he reflected on how much his life had changed since that rainy night in the jungle. One act of kindness, offering shelter to a mysterious alien woman, had sparked a chain of events that was reshaping two civilizations. And somehow, he wouldn't have it any other way. 3 months after the assassination attempt, Jack found himself in an entirely new kind of challenge. Shopping for baby supplies in a hybrid human-Luminarian marketplace, the newly established diplomatic zone had become a fascinating blend of both cultures, though it still produced plenty of amusing misunderstandings. "No, absolutely not," Lorena declared, examining a traditional human crib with skepticism. Her pregnancy had progressed beautifully, her pink skin now carrying a constant pearl-like luminescence that drew admiring glances from both species. "Our child will need a proper energy-conducting bassinet." "Sweetheart," Jack sighed, though he couldn't suppress his smile. "Human babies don't typically need crystal arrays to sleep. But human babies don't usually generate quantum energy fields in their dreams," she countered, absently running her hand over her growing belly. "Remember last week?" Jack chuckled, recalling how their child's nocturnal energy pulses had accidentally activated every electronic device in their quarters. "Fair point, but maybe we could compromise? Something that combines both cultures?" A familiar voice interrupted their debate. "Already thinking like a diplomat, I see." They turned to find General Preston approaching, accompanied by High Counselor Astra. The unlikely pair had become the primary architects of human-Luminarian integration policies, though their methods often raised eyebrows on both sides. "Sir," Jack started to salute, but Preston waved him off. "At ease, son. This is a family visit." The general's eyes twinkled with uncharacteristic mischief. Besides, your mother-in-law and I have a surprise for you both. Mother? Lyrana's energy field flickered with curiosity. What are you plotting? Astra's crystalline laugh drew attention from nearby shoppers. We've had our best artisans and engineers working together. Consider it a gift for our groundbreaking grandchild. She produced a small device that, when activated, projected a hologram of a unique nursery design. It featured elements of both cultures seamlessly integrated. Human-style comfort merged with luminarian energy handling technology. The crystals are grown into the organic materials, Preston explained proudly. First successful fusion of both species manufacturing techniques. Jack studied the design with growing appreciation. It's perfect, just like our little energy pulse generator here. Lorena elbowed him playfully, causing small sparks to dance between them. Their child's energy field had made their natural attraction even more interesting, often creating unexpected light shows when they touched. Speaking of energy, Astra's expression turned more serious. How are you handling the increased power fluctuations, daughter? Better now that Jack learned to channel some of it. Lorena smiled at her mate's embarrassed expression. Turns out humans have more latent energy manipulation potential than anyone suspected, especially when properly motivated. Preston raised an eyebrow at Jack, who quickly found the marketplace ceiling fascinating. The general's booming laugh suggested he'd heard some reports about the couple's energy experiments. That reminds me, Preston said after composing himself. The joint medical team wants to see you both. Something about unprecedented developments in human adaptive capabilities. Again, Jack groaned. I swear, Doctor. Chase gets more excited about my evolutionary acceleration than our actual child. Can you blame them? Lorena's eyes sparkled with that mischievous gleam he'd first seen in the tent. You're the first human to develop energy manipulation abilities through intimate contact with a luminarian. The scientific implications are fascinating. And the personal implications weren't bad either, Jack whispered in her ear, causing her skin to pulse with light. Children, Astra interrupted, though her amusement was clear. Perhaps we should focus on the shopping. Unless you'd prefer I share some traditional luminarian child-rearing practices with the general public? Mother! Lorena's glow turned distinctly pink. You wouldn't. Try me, daughter. I haven't forgotten how you used to short-circuit your nursery crystals for attention. The shopping expedition continued with much laughter and cultural exchange, though Jack noticed both Preston and Astra maintained subtle security awareness. The assassination attempt might have failed, but the conservative factions hadn't given up entirely. Later that evening in their quarters, Jack held Lorena as they watched the sunset through their crystal-reinforced windows. Her energy field harmonized with his developing abilities, creating a peaceful cocoon of light around them. Having second thoughts? She asked softly. About any of this? Jack considered the question seriously. His life had transformed completely since that rainy night in the jungle. He'd become the first human to develop energy manipulation abilities, found himself at the center of interspecies diplomacy, and was about to become father to a child that could potentially reshape both civilizations. Only one, he finally answered, pulling her closer. Oh? I should have built that campfire sooner. Lorena's laugh filled their quarters with dancing lights as their child's energy field pulsed in apparent agreement. Outside their window, the first stars appeared in the alien sky, promising new adventures for the unprecedented family. You know, Lorena mused, tracing patterns of light on his chest, most humans would have run screaming from half the things I've dragged you into. Most humans haven't had the privilege of being chosen by a beautiful alien woman who literally glows with happiness. Flatterer, she kissed him, sending sparkles of energy cascading around them. Though I suppose that's part of why I chose you. Humans have this remarkable capacity for adapting to the impossible, with grace and humor. Speaking of impossible, Jack grinned. Want to tell me why you really came to my tent that night? The full story this time? Lorena's expression turned thoughtful. Would you believe me if I said I had a feeling? That something in your energy signature called to me even before I saw you? After everything we've been through, I'd believe anything you tell me. Good, she smiled mysteriously, because there's something else you should know about luminarian pregnancies. What do you mean, synchronized birth energy? Jack stared at Lyrana, trying to process her latest revelation. The medical bay's crystal formations pulsed softly with their child's increasingly strong energy signature. When Luminarian children are born, Lyrana explained, her pearl-like glow intensifying with excitement, they create a quantum resonance field that bonds with both parents. It's how we form our deepest family connections. She squeezed his hand. But with you being human and already developing energy manipulation abilities, the effect could be unprecedented, Dr. Chase finished, practically bouncing with scientific enthusiasm. We're detecting quantum entanglement patterns we've never seen before. High Counselor Astra, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. It's more than that. The ancient texts speak of a time when our species could form deeper connections, share abilities across bloodlines, abilities we've lost over millennia of focusing on genetic purity. And you think our son might restore that? Jack asked, protective instincts flaring. Not alone, General Preston spoke up from his position near the door, but as a symbol of what's possible when we stop focusing on differences and start exploring potential? Hell yes. Lyrana suddenly gasped, her energy field flaring brilliantly. It's time! What followed was unlike anything in either species' medical records. As Lyrana's labor progressed, her energy field began synchronizing with Jack's developing abilities in new ways. The medical bay's crystal arrays amplified the effect, creating cascading patterns of light that drew amazed observers from both communities. The child's energy signature is stabilizing, the Luminarian physician announced, his professional detachment cracking with excitement. It's perfectly balanced between both species patterns. Jack held Lyrana's hand, marveling at how their energy fields had become almost indistinguishable. He could feel their son's presence growing stronger, a brilliant nexus of human determination and Luminarian power. Remember that night in the tent? Lyrana whispered between contractions, her skin shimmering with exertion. When I chose you? Kind of hard to forget, he smiled, wiping her brow. Though you could have mentioned you were basically a princess. Her laugh turned into another gasp as a surge of energy pulsed through them both. I knew you were special. Your energy signature. It called to me through the rain, like it was waiting. Less talking, more pushing, Dr. Chase interrupted, though her eyes were fixed on the incredible readings her instruments were detecting. The moment their son entered the world, every crystal in the medical bay, and reportedly across the entire diplomatic zone, lit up with unprecedented brilliance. The baby boy's first cry carried harmonic frequencies that resonated with both human and Luminarian energy patterns. He's perfect, Lyrana breathed, cradling their child. The boy's skin had a subtle iridescence, his human features softened by a gentle Luminarian glow. When he opened his eyes, they held depths of awareness that suggested he'd inherited the best of both species' abilities. Alexander, Jack said softly, remembering their Agnolan upon name. It means defender of mankind in ancient Earth languages. And in our tongue, Astra added, her usual composure softened by grandmother's joy. The closest translation means bridge between stars. As if responding to his names, little Alexander's energy field pulsed, creating a miniature aurora that encompassed his parents. Jack felt a connection snap into place, not just the normal parental bond, but something deeper, a sharing of awareness and ability that left him breathless. That's new, he managed, watching patterns of light dance across his skin. The quantum resonance is spreading, Dr. Chase exclaimed. It's affecting the human medical staff. They're showing increased sensitivity to energy fields. General Preston stepped closer, his weathered face showing unusual emotion. You're telling me this kid is literally teaching humans how to access Luminarian abilities? Not teaching, Lyrana corrected, gazing adoringly at their son. Awakening what was always there. Humans have such potential. You just needed the right key to unlock it. A key forged from love rather than laboratory experiments, Astra mused. Perhaps there's a lesson there for both our peoples. Hours later, after the initial excitement had calmed and the proud grandparents had finally been shooed away, Jack and Lyrana had a moment alone with their miracle child. Alexander slept peacefully in his quantum-stabilized bassinet, his energy field harmonizing with the room's crystals. So, Jack said, holding Lyrana close as they watched their son, was this your plan all along? Seduce a human scout, create a hybrid baby, and revolutionize two civilizations? Please, she scoffed, though her eyes sparkled with mischief. I just needed to warm up. Liar, he kissed her forehead, sending ripples of light cascading over them both. You knew exactly what you were doing that night. Maybe, she admitted, or maybe the universe knew what it was doing, bringing us together. Either way, she turned in his arms, her expression serious despite her glow. I'd choose you again, in any reality, any timeline. Even knowing all the chaos that would follow? Especially knowing that, her smile turned sultry. Besides, I seem to recall you rather enjoyed some of that chaos. Their son's energy field pulsed with what felt suspiciously like amusement, reminding them they weren't quite alone anymore. You know, Jack mused, when I built that campfire in the jungle, I thought I was just following standard survival protocols. Never imagined it would lead to all this. That's humanity's greatest strength, Lorana said softly. You build fires in the darkness, offer shelter to strangers, and in doing so, change the very stars themselves. As if in response, Alexander's energy field created a miniature galaxy of lights above his bassinet, each point of light representing the unlimited potential of their shared future.